Hi everyone, Sarah here from Sarah at Homfray Embroidery, and today's video I'm going to show you how to make your embroidery stitches go around corners. So I've had a few people ask me for this, and I thought this would be a good one to do actually, and I put a picture of this up on the community page on my YouTube channel, and just a little taster, and said, what do you think this video is about? And we've had fun guessing what that might be all week. But Jessica said, hi Jessica, please let it be 5 stitches for going around sharp corners. So that's what we're going to do today. Jessica's one of our members, so if you want a chance to get involved in videos and have your say in what we might be doing, do join our membership. There's details about that in the description below this video. Do join our community, it'd be great to see you. Okay, I'm not going to show you every embroidery stitch because we will be here all day, but what I want to do is to show you the principles of how you get around a corner and to teach you how to think about it so that you can make those decisions for yourself. I try on this channel not to go, this is the way you must do it, because there's always more than one way of doing something, and I'm sure somebody will tell me another way. So I try just to get you to think about it yourself and to be able to make those decisions yourself. So I'm going to show you 5 stitches, all of different types of stitches, and show you how you can look at that stitch and how you can make it go around corners, and there will be several methods for some of them as well. So let's get going with the first one. So the first one we're going to start with is a simple running stitch. I'll just run through my setup quickly because somebody will see this and ask me what it is. So I've got some fabric, using a linen fabric on some stretcher bar frames, and they're being held in a versatile table clamp. If you want more information on these products and how I'm using them here, you can see that in the description below the video. So I'm going to use a perlé thread, no particular reason. This is about the stitches, not really about the threads. You can do this in any thread you like. And if you've seen my sampler video, I'll put that up here. If you haven't seen it yet, do check that out, because this is a really good time to use that. You should all be doing that method, trying it out beforehand and seeing how it works with different stitches and different threads. And just have a little go first before you jump on your actual piece so you know what you're doing. So that's really useful. So I'm just going to start as I normally do. Knot on the top, which will get cut off later. It's a waist knot. So I'm just going to do a running stitch. Now I've marked these lines on with a water soluble pen, so I can just spray it lightly with some water later and they'll disappear, so I'm not worried about following those and missing it and still being able to see the line. That will come off later. So I'm just going to start with a running stitch. Now there's several ways to take a running stitch around a corner, so I'll show you all 3 ways. I've got 3 corners to show you with. So I'm going to take the first one right up to the corner and down into the corner like so. Let's just cut that knot off to get that out of the way. Now I want to maintain that gap between my stitches, so I'm going to come up ahead of myself. So the running stitches will meet that corner, we've turned the corner, and we're going to carry on. I'm going to maintain the gap between the running stitches. So that's the first way that you can tackle it. So you need to understand the stitch really to decide what to do to get it to go round a corner. So the running stitch has this gap between the stitches. That's what makes it a running stitch, because it's running along through the fabric. So the second way, I'm going to make them both meet in the corner. So I'm going to eliminate that gap and just make a sort of a square corner. So this stitch will go down into the corner like so. And whereas here we left a gap, I'm going to actually come up ahead of myself the length of the stitch, and I'm going to come back down into the corner. And we've made an actual corner. That can be quite good if you want your shape to show up with these clearly defined corners. You want a nice sharp corner on it, so that's a good way to make that corner really stand out a bit, is to make both stitches go into the corner. And you don't need to measure your running stitches, just adjust them a little bit as you go along to make them meet the corner. It might be a shorter stitch. It happens to have worked out that it's the same length, but it might be a shorter stitch. And the other way is to make both stitches stop just before the corner, so the gap between the stitches is actually the corner. So I'll show you that now. So there's my corner. there, so I'm going to make that the gap, come up ahead the same distance away and carry on. So that will maintain the gap in the running stitches, but obviously now we don't have a clearly defined corner. So if you wanted to soften your edges off a little bit, or it doesn't matter that it doesn't look like a really sharp corner, that would be another method that you can use. So you can see how I'm thinking about it and how you can apply a different method for a different scenario depending what effect you want to have. Just going to finish that off there. So 3 different ways to get the running stitch to go around a corner. So let's look at a different kind of stitch now. So running stitch is made of separate stitches. So what happens if your stitches are all linked together? How do you get that to go around a corner? So we'll look at a chain stitch now. And a chain stitch goes around a curve really beautifully, but how do we get it to do a sharp corner? So I'm just going to start it here. I've got a couple of corners. Show you a few ways that you can do this. We do have separate videos on all of these stitches, by the way, so do check out the stitch library if you want to know how to do the individual stitches. Right, so the first corner I'm going to actually finish the stitch, so each stitch with chain stitch is connected to the last stitch, so I'm going to actually finish that one. So we go through the hoop, and then to make that loop stay down, we're just going to stitch down the other side of it. So I'm taking the needle right down into the corner, and that gives us a nice finished sharp point. So I can do a couple of things here. I can come up here and I can start again. So I'm coming up right next to where I went down. Don't come through the same hole because your chain stitch will come undone. And I'm going to carry on. So they're actually 2 separate rows. I finished the first row. I've brought my needle up close and I'm starting the second row separately and doing separate rows. And you'll see that that makes a really nice sharp point. Again, if you want that point to show up. Now the other thing you can do is connect your chain stitch to the last one. So I'm going to try and get that chain stitch to finish at the point. I'm still going to finish it off like I did before. I could turn now and go that way and go back into the chain and go that way, but what it tends to do is, you can see, it just sort of pulls the stitch in a little bit. So you can do that, but what I find best to do is to finish that stitch like we did the first corner, but then actually come up inside that loop again as if we were carrying on. So that secures that stitch down, but then it looks like the next stitch has come out of it. So come up out of the loop, going back in the loop as I would for a normal chain, but now I'm going to go in this direction. And now that actually now looks like that chain's connected to the previous one. And off we go again. So really just a matter of how you want it to look. Don't forget, try it on your little sampler. See which one you like the best, see which one suits your design. And then you've got a couple of options to choose from. So let's have a look at a blanket stitch for this one. So buttonhole blanket stitch. We'll do a blanket stitch which is slightly wider apart than a buttonhole. Now this one is a wide stitch, so we're going to again do 2 corners, an outside corner and an inside corner, to show you how to get round both of those. So blanket stitch starts away from the line. I'm going to go down onto the line, come up inside the loop. So don't forget, we've got videos on all of these if you want to see the actual stitch. Do it quite wide so we can get around there quite quickly. I'm just trying to show you different kinds of stitches so that you can see how to think about them. You've either got to finish the stitch off, or some stitches will turn. So it's about understanding your stitch first and foremost. So always try the stitch first to make sure you understand what it is you're actually doing before you go around a corner. So we're approaching an outside corner first. I'm going to keep this stitch going. Now this is always perpendicular to the line, so this is 90 degrees. You can do slanted ones, that's slanted blanket stitch, but normally it would be straight, so we want to keep that going all the way round. So I'm going to do one more there, reached my corner, and you'll see what happens. We're going to stay closer together here, so I'm going to go into the corner. Now we've got to get round here, so this is going to go back into the same hole, and we're going to swing the outside round a bit. Now you need to tension this away, or you shall lose that tension of your stitch. So back into that same corner again, swinging the outside round. The middle, the centre is staying where it is, and the outside is coming around it. We get a nice square corner, so we're actually round the corner now. 3 stitches. You can do more stitches to get round there if you wanted to. If you were doing a buttonhole, these stitches would be very close together, so you can just do lots of them to get round the corner, but the principle is the same. And then we can just carry on the straight again. So that's an outside corner, and you can see it makes that nice sort of square corner. So we're going to go around an inside corner now, so we're going to do the same principle, and the sort of outside of the stitch will stay in the same place, and we'll swing the inside round. So I'll show you because that will make much more sense. So I'm going to do one more there, and then I'm going to go into my corner, back up next to that stitch there. Now I'm not going through the loop because that won't form a stitch. It must be to the outside of the loop, but you can see how close that is there. And then if I tension that, that will give me my diagonal corner stitch. I can swing it all the way around. Getting really close there. And then I'm back on track again to go down here. So not difficult at all. Just swing one round on the outside, one round on the inside, and you can get around all your corners that way. So we've looked at single stitches, we've looked at stitches that are connected to the previous stitch, we looked at wide stitches. So let's look at overlapping stitches now. So we're going to do a stem stitch. So simple stitch, straightforward, but I'm making that loop. I'm going to come up inside the loop, and this is where they overlap. So this one is going to overlap the previous one. So we've got to get that around the corner. So I'm just going to whiz up to the first corner. You can see it makes this kind of a rope effect, and that's the overlapping stitches that do that. So this looks a bit sort of wider than a single stitch, a running stitch or a back stitch. This one looks more like a rope. Now the best way to deal with this one, I think, is to actually finish it at the corner. We can't really make that go round a corner, but because each stitch is covered half by the next stitch, half of that stitch is covered by half of the next stitch, it's better if you can just do a little shorter stitch when you get to the corner, and it won't look like it's got such a long stitch that's not finished. So I'm going to go down into the corner here, and then I'm going to come up ahead of myself now. So this will be the length of the stitch here. I'm going to come back into the corner. That makes that nice sharp point. There's my loop, back up in the loop, we can carry on. So I don't need to go forward with my stitch all the time. I've come up ahead and come back on myself, so I can get into that corner and make that a nice sharp turn. So I'm just going to do that one more time because it's a bit more complicated than the others. So keep your stitch going up to the corner, but this one will be just a little bit shorter because we're not overlapping this stitch. So into the corner, then I come up ahead of myself, back down into the corner. This stitch will be overlapped, so we're back up in the middle and carry on. And you can see this one makes really nice sharp corners, so only really one way to do this. You can't get around a sharp corner when they overlap. So finish the first stitch, start the next one on the next row, but just shorten them a bit at the corner so it looks more like a step stitch. The last one that I want to show you, I'm going to use 2 threads for this one. You might wonder why that is. If you were doing gold work or some white work techniques, you might be doing some couching. So that's putting your thread on the top and stitching over it and holding it down, and you might need to get around some corners. So I thought this one was worth showing you how to do because it's nice and easy. So I'm going to, I've got 2 dark pink threads, and I'm going to couch those down with a light pink, and all I do is come up one side and go down the other side. But I want to show you what happens at the corner because there's quite a specific way of getting around the corner. So this one is loose, don't put the tension on this one that you're stitching over. When you get to the corner, to get a nice sharp point, we want one of these couching stitches, this is the one that's going over the top, to be actually right on the corner. If we don't do that, we'll lose the point and we get a rounded corner, which might be nice. You might want a rounded corner, so again it depends what you're stitching. Try a little bit out and see what works, but I'm going to make a nice sharp point because that's what this video is about. So I've gone right up to the corner there. Now the trick with this is to come on the inside. It doesn't really matter whether it's inside or outside for your straight line if you're just doing a single row, but I'm going to come on the inside like that, and you can see what happens there. I've left my needle in, and you can see how I pull that pink thread, the dark pink thread, around the needle, and you can see the nice sharp point, and that's what's going to happen when we put the stitch in. So coming up in the corner, pull that couching thread out, the one I'm stitching over pulls down, you can see how nice and sharp that is, and then I'm just going to stitch down on the other side to the outside. If I come up on the inside and do it the other way, I don't get that nice sharp corner, I get more of a squashed one. So come up on the inside, pull it to the outside, and then you're ready just to go off down the second row here, and you can see how nice and sharp that is. So one that's worth knowing for lots of different kinds of embroidery techniques, and a nice simple one to finish with. So I hope you found this video useful, and I've given you enough tools for you to be able to get any kind of stitch around a corner. If you have enjoyed it, do give us a thumbs up, that will help more people to see it. And if you want to know how to do these stitches, we've got a great playlist here, the Stitch Library, tells you how to do all these in a lot of detail. So do check that out, and I'll see you in the next video.